This lesson is on dividing decimals. Um, to divide a decimal, first of all, we need to know some parts. And this is the quotient. That's the answer to a division problem. The divisor goes outside the house. The dividend is what's being divided up. So that goes inside. The remainder is what's left over, which we will turn into a decimal. So to divide a decimal by a whole number, you're going to use long division, ignoring the decimal point. Put the decimal in the same place as the dividend. That's the number being divided. So here's an example that's already worked out for you. I've got the number in here. Notice there is a decimal, the number out here, and then the quotient is up here. Notice our decimal just went straight up. And then it's just the normal long division that you've been doing for a while. 3 goes into 4 one time, so we do minus 3. 1's left over. Then you bring down your 3. 3 goes into 13 4 times. That's 12, so we subtract that to get the remainder of 1. Bring down the 7, so on and so on and so on until you get a remainder of 0. Sometimes it's easier to work these types of problems on graph paper, again, to keep all your decimals lined up. I'm going to work it over on the side here since those squares are a little bit small for my pen. So 4 goes into 7 one time. So I'm going to subtract 4, and that means there's 3 left over. I'm going to bring down my 8 and decide how many times does 4 go into 38. That would be 9. 9 times 4 is 36. There's 2 left over. Notice my decimal point. Make that really big up here because sometimes it gets overlooked. Bring down your 0. 4 goes into 20 5 times. And there's nothing left over this time. But that doesn't mean I'm done because I still have a number up here. So 4 goes into 4 one time, and that's going to give me a remainder of 0. So my answer is 19.51. Now 20 does not go into 1, so I put a little X up here. 20 does not go into 10, so again I'm going to put a little X up here. 20 does go into 100, and that's 5 times. There's not going to be anything left over, so I'm going to drop down my, make that into a 2. 20 does not go into 2. Don't forget to put your decimal here. So I have to put a 0, not an X this time. Bring down my 5. 20 goes into 25 one time with 5 left over. Since I have a remainder of 5, I have to add a 0 on and continue to go until my remainder is 0. So 20 goes into 50 2 times. I'm going to go ahead and extend this line out. And that makes 40. I have to add another 0 and bring that down. 20 goes into 100 5 times. And there's my remainder of 0. So my answer is 5.0125. Now, I'm writing on an electronic tablet, so yes, my handwriting is a little bit messy. Normally, it would be neater. But if your handwriting is this messy as well, just normally, it might be a good idea to use that graph paper because this is kind of hard to read. And if you put it in these little squares, you can keep everything lined up very nice and neat. So definitely suggest that. Now, to divide a decimal by another decimal, the process is just a little bit different. The number that's in front always goes inside. That's the number that's being divided. This into this many groups. That's what it means. So this is being divided up, which means it goes inside. That is our number of groups, so that goes outside. Now, it's really hard to figure out how many of 800ths groups there is in the number 7, so we don't do it that way. What we do is multiply by a power of 10, which means we're multiplying by 10, and that moves the decimal place once. Multiply by 100, and it moves it twice. However, you can't just do it to the inside. You also have to do it to the outside. So if I move the decimal point twice to make a whole number here, I also have to move it twice back here to keep things even. So let's work an example. It's a little easier sometimes to see that way. So hopefully you notice that over here, we've got 2 decimal places to get rid of to make that a whole number. So I'm going to move it once, twice, which means I also have to move this once, twice. I don't like looking at my problems like this, so I always rewrite them. That's now a 2, 8, 2, 6, and my decimal is now between my 4. Now this is exactly what we did earlier. 2 goes into 8 4 times. Nothing left over, so I bring down my 2. 2 goes into 2 1 time with nothing left over. 2 goes into 6 3 times, and again, nothing's left over. Don't forget about your decimal. Bring down your 4. 2 goes into 4 2 times, and again, nothing's left over. So our answer is 413.2. This one actually only has 1 decimal spot. So I'm going to move it once and once. So I'm going to rewrite my problem. That's now a 3. And this is going to be 9.6. So how many times does 3 go into 9? 3 times with nothing left over. How many times does 3 go into 9? 3 times with nothing left over. How many times does 3 go into 6? Twice with nothing left over. Again, don't forget your decimal point. Sometimes people will actually put their decimal point, just move it up first so that they don't forget it as they're going through the process. So if a car travels 360.25 miles, it uses 13 1/10, which is the same thing as 13.1 gallons of gas. How many miles per gallon of gas does the car travel? So this is miles, this is gallon. Anytime you see that word per, that means divide. So lots of people like to do that. And that tells you that miles goes on top of gallons. Or inside, sorry. The miles is what's being divided up. So now I can't do this, so I'm going to move this decimal spot over once, which makes it 131. But I also got to move that one over 1, which gives me this. Now this is kind of a big number, but you still can do it. Just do the best. If I multiply it by 10, that's going to give me 1310. So I know it's not going to be 10. It's going to be something that's much, much larger than that. So first of all, I know, sorry, forget what I just said. I'm getting ahead of myself. 131 does not go into 3, so make an X. 131 does not go into 36, so make an X. This makes it a little bit easier. 131 goes into 360. It doesn't go 3 times, but it does go 2 times. So now I've got 262, which that's going to give me, let's see, I need to do a little bit of math over on the side so that I can show my borrowing. Oops, 262. So this is going to be a 10 because I got to borrow. That's why I wanted to move it over to the side. 10 minus 2 is 8. Now that's 5 minus 6. I can't do that. So I need to make this a 15, which is going to make that a 2. 15 minus 6 is 9. 2 minus 2 is 0. So this is going to be 98. And now I'm going to bring down my 2. Oops, look, I almost forgot. Put my decimal up there real big so I don't forget about it. Now, 131 does go into 982. It actually goes in 7 times, I believe. Let's check that out. So 7, 3 times 7 is 21. Carry my 2. And then 1 times 7 is 7, plus the 2 is 9. Yep, 7 times. And that gives me 917. All right, so I got to do a little more scratch work over here because I got to show my borrowing. This is 12, so this becomes 7. 12 minus 7 is 5, and 7 minus 1 is 6. So I've got 65 left over. I'm going to bring down my 5. And now I need to figure out how many times it goes into 655. I have a hunch it's probably going to be 5, since 1 times 5 is 5, and there's a 5 on the end. So 5, that gives me 15. I'm going to carry it. 1 times 5 is 5 plus 1 is 6. Oh, look, I'm doing good. So 655, nothing left over, 0.5. So our answer is 27.5. Oops, make sure you can see the decimal, miles per gallon. Oops, pardon my crazy line there. All right, so that's all we have today. Looking your ISN for your homework. Remember the calendars in the front to help you see where that assignment is.